Hey, what's up, yo? My name is Millennial Smark, and I'm bringing you the slop, the whole slop, and nothing but the slop. I got one more video for you guys. Yes, I'm off today, pretty obviously. Let's talk about this for a second, because one thing that I kind of touched on last night, but I didn't all the way touch on, that I kind of want to get you guys' opinion on, and that's this whole Dick Rider gimmick, right? This whole Dick Rider stable. To be more direct, the Death Riders, right? I call them the Dick Riders. Let's talk about them overall as far as what they've accomplished so far in AEW. Now, I only bring this up because I look at last night and I look at the current storyline that's going on right now with Edge and Moxley going into Revolution. And the sad part about it is you can't put all of it on Tony Khan. Now, if you want to say that he's at fault for the majority of it because he's the one that's greenlighting it, he's the owner of the company, by all rights, I completely understand. But in the end of the day, who's the one who's actually inputting the majority of the creative direction? That'd be Jon Moxley. He's able to go around, dictate how he feels the pacing of his group should be going forward. He's the reason why I'm pretty sure Marina Shafir is in the group and she's given a spotlight. Now, on paper, when you look at the Dick Riders, this could be an interesting gimmick. You know, a bunch of ragtags, for the most part. They're trying to play off of influences from, you know, American X story and all those kind of stuff, but you're not seeing a bunch of cohesiveness, right? When I think of the Dick Riders and how they should be coming across, it's almost like, I don't know, like underground mercenaries to a certain degree, right? They should be the type of stable where it's not quite in that manner, but sort of kind of in the same. And bear with me when I, say something like this, right? It should be, at least how it comes off to me, something along the lines of the Warriors. Like, I don't know if you guys ever seen that movie before. It came out like in the late 70s or early 80s. You probably heard it, the line, Warriors, come out and play. You probably heard it before, right? I was kind of thinking that was the path that they were going to go into. You know what I mean? Just, again, a bunch of outsiders, legitimate outcasts who want nothing more than respect to be brought within the name of AEW. And they're going to do everything and anything to eliminate people who they don't feel is compelling to the name of AEW. Like, again, on the outside looking in, it seems like a compelling story, right? They're not heels. They're not faces. They just want people to keep up with the tradition of the hard knock life. And they're willing to do that by any means necessary. Instead, I don't know the purpose of the gimmick. Instead, I'm still trying to figure out what is their reason. I mean, I sort of kind of know their reason. That you live it up to Jon Moxley. The purpose behind the Dick Riders is to, I don't know, like bring prestige to the AEW name. I guess that's what he's trying to get across. But again, this is just me kind of generalizing, broadly speaking. But when you look at the history of the Dick Riders, what have they necessarily done to bring that to fruition? Like, they're trying to do this whole gimmick, or at least, on the offset, they were trying to do this whole gimmick where, like, they were trying to weed out the weak from AEW. Still, there's no cohesiveness as far as where the story is going, but they're just doing it anyways. But I look at what they were doing when they first came in, and you had Jon Moxley and Marina Shafir, and Marina was supposed to play the China role. And again, it was interesting. But then when they started to do this whole TNA frontline bullshit, the equivalent to it from a storyline perspective, when they went after AEW and its core veterans, it's like you look at the opposite end of that spectrum, and it's Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin and people like that, and it's like that's the people who you're going against. Because I would think theoretically, with Jon Moxley's ideology, these are the people that he would like to be leading AEW, more in particular, or Darby Allin. So the confusion is already set in as far as who on the opposite end of the spectrum, because I would think that Jon Moxley, as far as going after the AEW superstars, will like to go after the sports entertainers, right? Right, that's who I would think he would like to go after, broadly speaking. But it's like everybody, maybe you can make an argument for Orange Cassidy, but for the most part, the argument being made as far as the people who he wants to actually lead the way are people who already fit his ideology as far as professional wrestling is concerned, right? Will Ospreay, for an example, Kenny Omega, for an example, Swerve Strickland, Hangman Adam Page. These are people who, for the most part, have the same type of mindset that a Jon Moxley has. So who is he going after? Who are you legitimately trying to weed out? Again, if the argument, without them even saying it, happens to be sports entertainers, then who are the sports entertainers that you're going after theoretically, that you're trying to weed out? Is it the legends? Do you feel that the legends are sitting there and they're resting on their laurels? Is it the young people who are resting on their laurels? But why are you going after them when almost all the young people who are in fact resting on their laurels not legitimately getting any time on television? Off rip, the people who are getting time on television are the people who coincide with your ideology. So again, from the offset, I'm not understanding where this is all going. But then it takes a step further and you have Jon Moxley putting the championship in the briefcase after turning on Bryan Danielson, which, again, a guy who fits your ideology. And, you know, if you were making an example out of him, maybe you could have touched on the fact that Danielson is never around. He's kind of wishy-washy when being with the group, because that's legitimate when you see the stories that's been playing out throughout the rest of the year, right? It never really felt like, at least to me, Bryan Danielson was completely indebted to the Dick Riders, right? Or I guess before that, you know, when they were, what was their previous names? The Blackpool Combat Club, right? Like, that's, if you were making an argument that, oh, okay, Danielson doesn't seem like he's that committed, then I can understand that, you know, like, at least, I mean, it doesn't completely fit the story of what you're trying to go about it, but you can, you know, deter off of that a little bit, and you can make the story of Bryan Danielson, he's not a part of the mission that you're trying to go after, even though we're still not understanding of what the hell that mission is. That way, at the very least, you know, if you were to talk to Bryan Danielson, there's some cohesiveness with the story that you're trying to play across. Maybe in a later date, Bryan Danielson can be the leader of that opposite side of the faction, or at least a voice of reason, and he could, if he's not going to be the one going up against a Jon Moxley, he could be the person who's at least assisting the person who's going to lead the charge to go up against a Jon Moxley. But they couldn't even do that right. They took out Bryan Danielson in the most comical manner possible. You have announcers crying and stupid shit like that, and then you have Jon Moxley who wins the belt, then he puts it in a briefcase and it's no longer to be seen. And like I said, he goes on to have just pointless fucking feuds with the likes of Darby Allin, who, you know, it didn't really amount to anything. You know, Darby Allin now is resting up to get ready to train to go up the Mount Everest all over again. Like, you know, Orange Cassidy, he's now fighting Takeshita and not even winning the match to go up against Kenny Omega. You know, like, I'm looking at the substance of the group and it's already deteriorating before we actually even got to what the hell the point of the group is overall as far as their mission statement is considered. Like I said, they deterred to go up against the AEW frontline, and I don't know who are the AEW frontlines and why are you going up against these guys who seemingly share your vested interest in the company overall. And like I said, the AEW World Championship, you're hiding it. I'm not understanding the significance behind that or why you're doing it. I mean, I'm pretty sure he gave an explanation, but why? What's the point? Why are you doing that? Why, in the grand scheme of things, does it matter that the championship belt is hidden in the briefcase? And if someone were to take it, is that a problem? Why? And my biggest problem, just taking away the kayfabe sense for a minute with the Dick Riders, is the fact that none of the characters have yet been established as far as being as cohesive as you would think they would be. Hell, just looking at the entire stable as a whole is so discombobulated, where I'm looking at the people who I figure are the strongest members of the stable. Like Jon Moxley is the leader. I guess Marina Shafir is positioned as his second in command. And then you have someone like a Cesaro, who's a muscle of the group, who he feels like he's getting the biggest push out of the group outside of Moxley and maybe Marina. But then you have Pac there, and it's like, why? Why is Pac there? What is he doing that's anything significant? There could be a decent story told with Wheeler Yuta being held captive. You were somewhat kind of doing that when Wheeler was very hesitant to use the chair on Bryan Danielson, and he was very hesitant to side with the Dick Riders initially against the Bryan Danielson because Bryan Danielson was his mentor, but you couldn't even flesh out that story properly. Like that could have been something. You don't have to like Wheeler Yuta because we're talking about the essence of the story, right? The plot devices who are in the story. That could have been something compelling. Whether you like Wheeler Yuta or not, that could have been something compelling. There's a guy who is very confused as to what he wants to do within the stable. That could have been something. But instead, like I said, we don't have a connection with any of these people as far as their current characters are concerned with right now, right? And to make matters much worse, like I said, stepping out of the kayfabe sense, for an example, you barely give this stable any time or substantial time, especially considering not only are they a make it or break it stable for you, at least as how they come across right now today. Not only are they the main eventers and the world champions going forward in your company, but I would think they're the only ones for the most part who have something that is constant. You know what I mean? Everybody else is, switching through feuds or switching through stories. This is the most constant thing that you currently have on your television, and you can't even be bothered to give them something in the beginning, to give them something in the middle, and to give them something in the end. This is another problem that I have with the overall priorities when looking at AEW, is the inconsistencies when it comes to the booking flow of some of the things that should be number one priority. Like I said, and I love making this comparison, you go back to the Attitude Era, you go back to 1998. I'll give you a perfect example. Obviously, you go straight to McMahon and Austin. McMahon and Austin was the theme throughout the show, and even though they were the theme throughout the show, let's just say it's a 2-hour program, they probably got 8 segments, right? Let's just say you got 10 segments on, or let's just say you got 15 segments on the show, right? Or 16 segments on the show with about 4 commercials in between each 4 commercials in between each 4 segments, for an example, right? They're probably going to get 2 segments out of each of those 4 segments happening within those 16 segments. And the other 2 that happen in between each time are something that's, like a come down period, or something where it's like if it's next in line in regards to how over it is, you give it significant time without detracting from the main storyline happening throughout the show, right? That's perfect linear storytelling. A beginning, a middle, and an end. An A, a B, and a C. The people come to watch this, and if they so happen to watch everything else on the show, and they get invested into that thing or that character or that entity or that group, eventually, if they get over enough, maybe, just maybe, they can fill that void for the next story that's going to take place outside of Austin and McMahon to head the show. You've seen this. After McMahon and Austin, who happens to kind of fill that void next? Then it was Undertaker and Kane who filled that void. Then eventually you led off with The Rock in Austin. Then eventually it was Triple H in Austin. Then Austin went away and Triple H took that ball along with The Rock. And it was Rock and Triple H who took that and ran with it for a little bit before eventually you dropped it to Kurt Angle a year later. And it keeps going and going and going and going. The same thing happened with Austin and McMahon when Mike Tyson came into the picture and you used his star power to land it to Austin, which eventually, because Austin took the star power from Mike Tyson, you let that kind of linger, with D-Generation X starting to get over, with Undertaker and Kane starting to get more over, with Sable starting to get more over, with the Nation of Domination starting to get more over. Eventually people come to see that programming, and then you see other programs directly underneath that, like the Hardcore division, for an example, and it keeps going and going and going and going and going like a fucking pyramid. This is not hard to do, and you would think that that is the platform that the Dick Riders should be presented in when focusing on the stories that are currently happening in AEW. There should be a beginning, there should be a middle, and there should be an end, and there should be investment within the characters and themselves getting over, while at the same time you're presenting somebody new within the main event scene as far as the AEW side is considered. If you're still doing the Dick Riders versus AEW angle that you're trying to present against a Jon Moxley because he's the biggest star and he's the world champion currently within this angle, you get people invested within that by doing things outside of the ring, not just constantly having backstage brawls and microphone speaky time. No, you're doing things outside of that. You have a clubhouse for them, right? You do things like showing Jon Moxley legitimately curb stomping somebody on a fucking sidewalk. Have them kidnap some people. They were driving in a desert when doing promos building up to fucking World's End. Where the fuck is all that shit? They have that truck that could be a staple in a landmark. These are the things that I'm talking about that they don't do in AEW. They're so fucking fixated on doing segment. And then, okay, those characters got over, segment. Okay, those characters got over, segment. Those characters got over. No, none of them are getting over. None of them at all are getting over. You're treating it like a variety show when you're not over enough to do something like that. We need skits. We need to relate to the characters, and you're not doing that with the Dick Riders. Which brings us now to current time, where you have the Dick Riders now feuding with Edge, Adam Copeland, Cope, whatever the fuck you want to call them. And now you're bringing FTR into the mix with Adam Copeland, which, by the way, now they're gone from Adam Copeland. What the fuck are they currently doing right now while you're still in the mix of the story in itself? What the fuck? You randomly bring in boring ass Jay White, which he could be interesting if you can actually do something with that character. Theoretically, I would personally have someone like a Christian maybe making this way to maybe serve Edge a little bit to go up against the Dick Riders, considering Christian actually has a family to back him, considering Christian is actually friends with Edge, considering Christian has that little contract in his hand. There are 1,000,001 ways of how you could work this all out, where Edge could still have someone like a Christian. You can eventually have them do the shit with the Dick Riders. You can eventually have something like, for an example, Cesaro going up against Christian with his contract on the line, right? And Cesaro can get the contract from Christian, and Christian can be mad at Edge for dragging him into this whole bullshit, and now he lost his contract, and now Cesaro has it, for an example, and that's a segue to eventually maybe have Edge and Christian team up together. Maybe Edge and Christian doing all this stuff with the coalition or the patriarch, whatever you're calling them, could eventually turn on Christian, and they could join up with Jon Moxley, and they could be a part of this bigger stable, for an example. There are 1,000,001 things that they can do that I'm just throwing at the top of my head that they are not trying to do, that there is no focus on. There is no development. There is no reason to relate to any of this stuff. It's just one segment each week, randomly happening, by the way, sometimes in the most innocuous fucking, not innocuous, excuse me, in the most inadequate fucking time slots. And it's like, why? What is the purpose of this? Who's getting over? Who is this helping? And they do this all the time throughout their fucking card. That's my main problem with the Dick Riders. That's my main problem with any main story going on. They did the same thing with CM Punk and Hangman Adam Page, to the extent that you remember nothing from a kayfabe standpoint when dealing with that feud, because in order for them to linger in your mind, then you have to go to the shoot bullshit that happened to be a domino effect that led to CM Punk being in WWE. That's the lasting legacy of CM Punk and Hangman Adam Page. Not the kayfabe stuff, the shit that happened to be a shoot because Hangman Adam Page is a complete dumb fuck, and now we have CM Punk in WWE currently at the moment. And it happens all the time with their World Championship, and it bugs me because it's not just the World Championship, it happens with the Women's Championship too. And you have these people in this generation, people who they fangirl over AEW, and they say, this is cinema, this is so awesome, and it's like, what are you talking about? What the actual fuck are you talking about? Who is getting over? How many segments did they have? What are we talking about as far as relating? God damn it. It's like if you give these people one day of the Attitude Era or the early Ruthless Aggression Era, their fucking heads would explode. I promise you, their fucking heads would explode because they would never have seen booking like that before. An actual cohesive booking that tells you a story throughout the night, like, I don't know, a regular fucking television show, or I don't know, chapters in a fucking book. They don't get it. They sit here and they just present you people. And then these people, they feel like they can just get over it by going out there and wrestling. And they believe the wrestling in itself is supposed to carry the weight of what the story is supposed to be doing as far as his job is considered. And you end up with the dick riders. You don't relate to Pac. Don't fucking give me that shit. You don't relate to Wheeler Yuta. Don't give me that shit. You don't relate to Cesaro. Don't give me that shit. Or Claudio Castagnoli. I can't even bring myself to use his AEW name because I forget about it sometimes. That's how fucking less of an over person he happens to be at the moment. Marina Shafir, to the extent you don't even give a shit about her, where she could be special. That role that she's playing has never been done in AEW. And in the grand scheme of professional wrestling, that role, as far as what she's doing in regards to it being taken seriously, hasn't been done in nearly 30 years since Chyna was with Triple H. It could be special. She's a legitimate badass. God rest her soul, unlike Chyna, she's an actual MMA competitor or whatever. That could lend credence to what the fuck she can do with the men, because theoretically you would think to yourself there's a good chunk of men, average men, who probably can't go toe to toe with her in real fucking life. You can exploit that, but you refuse to do any of this. And there goes Jon Moxley. Say what you want about it, Jon Moxley. This guy is 1/3 of one of the biggest stables in the history of professional wrestling, damn sure in the last 15 fucking years. And there he is, world champion, and he's not making a difference at all. Make that make sense. And on top of that, he's one of your top tier stars. On top of that, he's one of your most decorated champions in that company, and you still somehow fuck it up. And when I say decorated champions, as if that has any meaning whatsoever, because who the fuck cares about the AEW World Championship? What's the purpose of the Dick Riders? What have they done? What's the means to the end? What's the consequences? What's the reward? That's all I'm asking. I'm not getting any questions answered. Maybe some of you guys can help me out in the comment section below, because goddamn, I'm going to need some fucking answers to this. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, as I said before. Don't worry, I'll be back tomorrow with some more content if something were to pop off. Until then, let this sink in your head. The Dick Riders are completely meaningless, when in reality, they could be something special if you actually had a professional somewhere around them helping them out. Deuces P. Ice.